Yeah, you had mentioned Elliot. I think you had tweeted out something about even Carter Hart could be available, or
I
there's.
said it. I didn't tweet it, but it got tweeted a
Oh,
lot.
okay,
So, yeah.
okay. Yeah, I apologize, but we were
No
talking
worries.
about that. It would be to me it'd be a shame because we've waited so long. I've been with the Flyers. I was with the Flyers for 25 years, and even before
Yep.
that with my father. And it's been a long, long time. And you get a kid, I think, who's very special in net. Um, but I guess if you're rebuilding, it could be a piece that you end up moving. Do you hear a lot about that, or just
Well, what I would say this is, Derek, what do you think of Urson?
well, I've seen 7 games,
Yeah.
and
so I
and
mean
he's done.
he's
He's
looked
done. Yeah,
great,
he's looked great.
but
Yeah,
it's seven
but
I mean,
seven
I
games.
just remember that one game in Calgary. Like that's going to be a game if Calgary misses the playoffs. That this year they outshot Philly like 80-2 that game, and the guy stood on his head. It's like,
He
wow, like
did,
who is
he
this
did,
guy?
yeah,
and he.
I think. Go ahead, Derek.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say he had a good. He played well in the preseason
he
also.
did. Yeah,
But
Mhm.
I mean, it's preseason. But
I think it comes down to a couple of things. Number one, I just think Carter Hart's in the second year of a 3-year deal. You really have to pay him after next year, and I
right.
think they're going to look at, okay, does it make sense for us to do this here yet? That's going to be one thing, and the other thing too is like I think if there's one position in the NHL where the difference between the best and the sort of the second or third group is growing greater than ever, it's in goal. Like, I know the Flyers, if you said, Derek, you guys have been looking for a goaltender for a long time, but this was a position where you had 20 number one goalies in this league for a long time. It's not that way anymore. I think there's
right,
less than 10 true number ones. And I think when they look at their kind of situation right now, I think they're wondering, does it make sense for them to take advantage of what the market could be for him and look at Urson as the goalie of their future? And I think that's something they're going to consider. Like the other guy I wonder about, and I've like Konechny this year. Okay, like so people say to me, well, if they think that way about Hart, they've got to think that way about Konechny. And it could happen. I'm just not as convinced. Like I'd heard teams had asked Chuck about Konechny, and he said, "Why would I do that unless you absolutely blew my socks off? Why would I do that?" And what I've heard about him is that Tortorella really, really likes Konechny, and they really think they need players with good habits around these young players as they grow up and learn to play. I'm sure they'll get asked. It'll be interesting with me about him because I really heard they weren't thrilled about the idea of moving Konechny, and we'll see what they decide to do.
right.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think well, anytime, but especially when you're in a rebuild, I think everything's for sale if the price is right, right? I mean, it's just like you'll never know unless there's a legitimate offer. I can see a guy like Konechny being a little bit different in a little bit different bucket. He does really bring that Flyers brand of play, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's a gritty guy. Those guys, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's hard to replace. He scores, he's competitive, he's got an fu, the
Yeah.
attitude. Um, but again, like you said, like you get an offer that blows your socks off, like you're probably not thinking of necessarily moving him. But who do you think? Who do you think is realistically dispensable? I know some guys are carrying some larger contracts that might not be easy to move, but what are your thoughts on a few of those guys?
Well, that's why I've wondered about Hart because I think Hart is, I do think the interest will be out there on him, and
Yeah,
so and plus I think, um, the thing about Hart too is like if you're like I look at Urson and I do think I've heard the Flyers really like him, and I think that if you have Hart, then he's going to want to play 40 to 50, 50 to 60 times, right? And
right.
is Urson really getting better if he's only playing, say, 20 to 25 games a year? Like maybe next year, but eventually you're going to want to start to move. If you think he's your guy, eventually you want to get him to 25, 30, 35, 40, and you're not going to do that if Hart's here. So
Right.
unless you make the decision that Hart's your guy, I think that's why I think you're going to hear his name. I'll tell you this. I don't like before Ottawa traded for Chikrin, like I don't know Dave Brown that well, but people tell me like he's one of the smartest scouts in the league. Like people have a lot of respect for the work that Dave Brown does. I have a lot of respect for the way he used to treat people in the 80s when I watched
Yeah.
hockey. But like people out there tell me like he's a really, really sharp guy. So Dave Brown was watching Belleville, I think, a couple of times, which is Ottawa's AHL team before the deadline. So I'm thinking that like you guys were watching Ottawa and they were looking at one of your D. Now, I don't think that's going on anymore because they went out and they got Chikrin and they got a bunch of other kids. But I think teams know that you guys are willing to consider some things on your defense, whether it's Provorov. I think it's unlikely to be Sanheim. I think you guys want to keep him. I'm not convinced you guys like. I mean, look, I think it's Provorov is the guy you guys would like to move. I think he'd like to go too. I think everybody realizes it's time here for a bit of a fresh start. So I think he's the other guy we're going to hear about. Although I think that one's a little bit complicated. We'll see how it all plays out.
Man,
Yeah,
he
that's good
he
insight.
eats up a lot of ice too, Elliot. Like
Yeah.
he gets. I don't want to say a bad rap here, but he
takes
people
a lot
are
of
kind of he takes a lot of heat here, and man, he just eats up a lot of ice. He does a lot of good things, but it is what it is. But like you said, he's probably a name that's
Yeah.
really.
He
I
could
think
probably use a
honestly,
fresh start.
Derek. Yeah, I think that's it, Riley and Derek. I just think that the player probably. I've heard the player wants it, and I heard the team wants it. So,
Yeah.
like, it's you just get to that point where you get there. The other name I should have mentioned before was Kevin Hayes. Like, I think
Oh,
Kevin
right.
Oh,
Hayes
yeah.
will be moved, and I think he'll like. I think like one of the teams we've all wondered about is Columbus with his relationship with Rick Nash and Johnny Gaudreau, but I'm sure there's going to be other situations. He's a center, and he can play. It's just a bad mix.